I'm sure you remember a time where they were like, bro, I heard they don't get paid over there. I heard it takes like 3 weeks to get paid, or hey, I heard it takes a month to get on. Well, that's what happens when you go from like 1,000 to 10,000 in a year. It's explosive. You need really good leadership to like deal with that. So that's a challenge. But when you're the incumbent, now you have different set of challenges. First challenge is competitors. So we went 10 years with zero competition, no other cloud-based brokerage. There are 22 models that now look like us. Proves you innovated. When something innovates in technology, everything after the innovator looks like the innovator. So we're old enough to remember a time when cell phones were all different shapes, sizes, and colors. When the iPhone came out, what did all phones look like? The iPhone. Nobody's trying to look like Century 21 or Remax. All of them are trying to look like EXP. So it's what's up, team? So it's very clear. So the challenge at that level is competition, but then it's also churn. It's retention, because agents have shiny object syndrome. So first we have to understand the context with which where we are in playing the game. The second thing I think that's really important to understand is the tactics that you deploy at different stages are different. So at the explosive growth stage, when you have no competitors, you could pick up the phone and call people. That's probably going to be effective. Now that there's 22 models that look like you, it's not as effective. Now we need lead levers, right? So what are the lead levers for attraction? Well, one is events, hence what we're doing. 2 is media. And the interesting thing about media is that the best way to show somebody you can actually help them is to help them for free. The most scalable way to do that is media. These mediums, these platforms, I think, and I'm not suggesting this is true for anybody at the table, most people don't understand what this actually is. It's free distribution. Okay? So now, the way I decide if I like people is I talk to them. We share ideas, I listen, and then we form a relationship. Well, now we live in a world where I can send myself in the digital form to have conversations with thousands, if not millions of people. I talk to them, they listen, I share ideas, and they form a parasocial relationship with me. Yeah? And I'm consistent. So I'm consistently pushing them content that's actually helpful to them. Okay, so watch. So I'm going to read something to you, and this isn't to make it about me, but to show you what I'm talking about in action. So I got a text 2 days ago while I'm at my son's soccer game. Hi, Aaron. I'm an independent agent in Westchester County, New York, located directly north of New York City. I'm thinking of joining EXP. Are you still sponsoring agents? I love your content. It has brought me much value and made me a better agent. I'm considering a sponsor through EXP. Your name is a no-brainer for me. Let me know.
I reached out to you watching one of your podcasts.
Right. And here's what I'm aware of is we've formed a relationship over hours, which caused you to view me as a guide to help you to solve your problems. So you got on a plane to come see me. That's crazy. So what I'm aware of is I can do I think the best way to show somebody you can help them is to help them for free. The most scalable way to do that is media. And shouting down models is a loser's game. Because these companies have great salespeople and anybody can make anything sound great. And agents they're not business people. They don't study models or anything. So I think the best way to rise above that whole conversation is to become the type of person somebody would say yes to without even knowing what you're doing. And the way to do that is I just add so much value. And then when you're thinking, then you reach out to me. So I'm not recruiting, I'm attracting.
There was a gentleman that I interviewed in City Valley where he still thinks that his model, he's 76 years old,
Yeah.
right between my mom and dad's age.
Yeah.
And he's thinking that that's just going to place, that he's still going to be able to attract people because he spent $1.5 million on his office.
I know.
And I asked him, I was like, so what is it when the owners say no longer, you know? And he said, well, I guess we'll just go ahead and retire, right? It's obvious that the system is working.
Obvious.
Then it's the hater stage. I think that you've actually mentioned the hater stage.
When a person makes money, they become a piss poor listener. And I think we do this thing like resulting. So because it's a fault in our thinking. So because something was true then, we think it's always going to be true. So when you were saying that to me, I imagine when people were like starting to drive cars and the guy who owned horses was like, nah, bro, I'm going to keep owning horses. And you're like, okay, I guess if you want to do that. Here's what I know factually. right? Because I think we get emotional about information and we get emotional about the way we make money, and I think that's silly. I know factually over the last 50 years, net company retained dollar to offices has dropped from 50% to 4 to 5%. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Me and Jose met with a guy who had 1,000 agents. His profit margin was 5%.
Yeah.
I also know the last 2 years specifically, we've been in a real estate transaction recession. Way less volume. As a result, revenue's down. I'm also aware with the rule changes, now buy-side commissions are variable.
Right.
Meaning, if you're in a marketplace, there's multiple offers. I know for a fact, because I coach agents all across the country, the offers that are accepted have the best price, the best terms, and the best commission.
Right.
Which means over time, with a high degree of probability, those will go down by 20. That's less revenue. So no matter how you slice it, revenue is shrinking. And what their logic is, here's what's cool. So I was sitting with that guy, 1,000 agents, and he's telling me why his thing is the way. And then we come to this interesting observation. He says something to me which is accurate. He's like, hey, we both agree. And he asked me if I play Fortnite. And I'm like, no, but my son does. And in the game of Fortnite, the way they speed up the game is they shrink the island. You're on the island, everybody's fighting, but everybody will hide. They won't fight. So they'll shrink the island, yeah, to get everybody to speed up. So what he said to me, which was really insightful, he was like, yo, we both agree the island's shrinking. I said, yes. He said, we're making different bets. I said, agreed. He said, my bet is I'm going to stay on the island in an office. And I'm going to hope and wish and pray that volume goes up.
Yeah.
And when it does, because I really make money from a title company, I'll make money from the title company and I'm going to leave the island on my yacht, which, by the way, he cares nothing about those other people.
Right.
And he said, I said, yes, correct. What I'm going to do is I'm going up into the cloud and I'm going to make sure everybody who's an agent on the island knows who I am. And then I'm going to sell them ancillary services, one of which is EXP. Because what they don't understand, here's the thing that they don't understand. YouTube went to their content creators in 2007 and 8 and said, hey guys, we have a very interesting relationship. You guys create all the content. We don't create anything, right? We're just a platform. We need you and you need us. So we need to come up with a mutually beneficial financial arrangement so we can keep doing business together. So what YouTube came up with based on performance is they say to content creators like me, hey, if you have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours worth of watch time in a calendar year, which is harder than it sounds, we'll give you half the revenue from ads on your content. First question, is that a scam?
It sounds like one.
But it's not.
First, but it's not.
It's just an economic model called revenue share.
Right. It just doesn't, it's so bizarre that one would think it's like, okay, somebody's trying to get something away from me.
Because we live in an antiquated, so our mental map is feudalism.
Mm-hmm.
There's a king who owns the office. The people who work the land, the agents, own nothing. It's never, ever possible for them to own anything. And what we reward them with is pieces of plastic. I have a guy who's a mentor in my life. He's an agent. He's doing it for a workhorse. So he did what I did for twice as long. That 150, 200 homes a year, just pounding it out. But he's in his 60s now. Worth a lot of money. Net worth wise, he makes a lot of money residually. And he's going through a transition that I went through, but I'm 20 years younger than him. So now he's asking me questions about it, which is interesting. Like, what is your schedule like? Is that weird that like you aren't doing those regimented activities, you know, whatever? What is interesting is I talked to him about like spending with a joyful heart. That is a biblical thing, or giving with a joyful heart. Because not only will you do that, but you also give a bunch of money away simultaneously.
That freaks Celia out.
I understand how it freaks her out, because when you first told me that you did that, it freaked me out, and I'm not even close to you or married to you.
There's a family that struggles financially, and they go to our school. I'm like, we should give her like $5,000.
And you just do it. That's the joyful heart thing.